Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. Here with me today, I have Odest Riley, the CEO of WLM Financial. I'm very excited about this episode. It's going to be very educational for our listeners. And Odest, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
So first of all, Sam, I'd like to say thank you for having me on. It's really a pleasure to be invited onto your show. I love what you're doing, bringing in, diversity and highlighting it and making sure that people know that there are other people out here in the world of real estate that are doing things. It's really a breath of fresh air.
Definitely. I appreciate it. So to start, just tell us more about who you are.
Well, just some tall guy who grew up in Inglewood, California. Grew up in the city of Inglewood, played basketball, worked my way into college, hurt my knee, realized I needed to learn how to read and count and do some other things. While I was in school, I bought my first condo and started my life of loving real estate. Bought a condo to live in and bought one to rent. And it kind of changed my life. And so for me, I am the guy who worked my way into real estate. So I am currently the owner of a company, WLM Financial and Realty. We're a real estate and lending company. We do residential and commercial. I spend the majority of my time working on deals, trying to make sure that other people who were raised like me in apartments understand the benefits of owning something, assets. And so I'm out here just trying to spread the word or the gospel.
Definitely. And what was your childhood like growing up in Inglewood? What did you see or what didn't you see that shaped your view of building wealth and what it was about?
So for me, growing up in Inglewood and on the outskirts of Inglewood, it was a pretty rough neighborhood growing up. It's a place everybody wants to be. But in the late 80s, early 90s, it wasn't so much a place that you would like to say. You would tell people, oh, I live next to LAX. Oh, I live over by Westchester. You didn't say I live in Inglewood. I grew up watching people live in apartments, argue and fight over not having money, and it just seemed like it wasn't the life for me. So I would say it was a show called LA Law. And I remember as a guy on there named, I think Artie, and he had a yellow Ferrari. And I was like, this is what I'm looking for. And I kind of knew from a young age, it was like, no, I'm looking to have nice things. And at one point it was basketball that I thought was going to help me make it out. And it ended up being real estate. So I would say growing up in Inglewood was pretty dope from the aspect of it's like a small town. It's only 9 square miles. So you got to know everybody. And people were very supportive if you were trying to do something positive. And because I was working on basketball and I kind of kept my head down, a lot of people got behind me and allowed me to get to where I'm at now.
Definitely. Can you talk more about how the community has changed? I mean, there's, of course, so much going on in Inglewood with the stadium, the train coming through, just new developments. What's it been like for you, just being a resident, growing up here, and then ultimately working here and having your company here?
So it's a double-edged sword for me. I'm not gonna lie. I love seeing all the money coming in and all the new development and all the things, restaurants and arenas and stadiums. And I know that people who own homes there are going to be able to build wealth from that. They're going to be able to set their kids up for generations. On the flip side of that, it's a lot of the people I grew up with, if they didn't own anything, if they grew up in an apartment like I did, which a majority of them did, it's no longer really affordable. It's still more affordable in a lot of other places in the South Bay, but just in general, if you're making $30,000 to $40,000 a year, it's very hard to live in the city of Inglewood. But if you have been here and you own something, it's a great place to hold on to. If you have a house that you've had since the 90s, it's probably worth triple what it's worth. And you can now tap that for equity, pay for your kids' college, do so many different things that can set you up for your future.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Of course, I live in Inglewood as well, only for a few years, but it's interesting just seeing everything change and how rapidly it's changed.
It's like almost overnight, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, even in just a couple years I've been here, it's just been crazy. So what would you say for those who don't own yet and who are in markets like LA? How can they get in the game?
There's a few ways to get in the game. One of the ways is group economics. I'm really big on group economics. I say you have a frat brother, line sister, cousin, real brother, like whoever it is, auntie, and you guys have been saving your money or you want to save possibly your tax return. You look for a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, somewhere that you can put a footprint in, and you buy something. And it's not always going to be the sexiest place. It's not always going to be the dream home. It's not going to be maybe your forever home, but it's going to be the foundation for you to start acquiring assets. You find a fourplex in a neighborhood in South LA that's maybe just starting to become they're getting safer. You're starting to see that they're building the train near it or something like that. You go there, you buy that with your cousin. You live in 2 units yourself, you rent out the other 2 units, and then you establish ownership. And then in 2 years, you take equity out and try to buy something else. That's my thing. It's get your hands on something, because if you sit around and you wait, it just gets more expensive.
Definitely. And um, one of the things people seem to be concerned about in markets such as LA is how to pay for the down payment and all those things. So can you discuss some of the programs that are available for people, and so they know that they don't necessarily have to pay 20% on a very expensive property?
So if it's your first home and it's going to be owner occupied, you can go FHA. Anything from a single family home, a duplex, a triplex, up to a fourplex. You can do 3.5% down, which allows for you to get in with, most things are not going to allow you to own it with the bank being the one who owes 96%, or 95.5%, I should say. There's very few things in the world that you're going to be able to get access to at 3.5% down. I know that's still a large amount of money to most people, but it's one of those things, like owning is not a birthright. It is a work right. You have to work your way into ownership. There's nothing in life that you're going to be able to get that's nothing free is going to be worth anything. So you have to make sure that you understand that 3 years of saving your tax returns is a down payment. 3 years of saving your tax returns and dollaring up with that cousin, that brother, that sister, that aunt, that uncle, that gets you into a home. And a little bit of sacrifice really does set you up for the long term.
Definitely, definitely. And what would the numbers look like on a property in LA? So you can kind of use a pretend number for the sake of the example, and can you walk us through what the financials would look like for someone who wanted to use FHA in a place like LA?
Okay, so let's just say, all right, let me grab my calculator.
Of
I'm going to have
course.
to, give me, I don't want to get up. Let's just say, so on $100,000, and that's not a real number because we know you're not buying anything in LA for
Times 5.
100,000. But at 100,000, you're putting down 3,500. That's your down payment. You're still going to need closing costs. You're still going to have title and escrow done. So they're going to make sure you have to pay for that. That's going to be a few. So if we're saying 400,000, that's about what? Well, $14,000 you're going to need to come with. So as a down payment. And then closing costs are probably going to be another 4,000 to 5,000. So around $20,000 will get you into a $400,000 property. Now, if this is a duplex, then let's say one of the units in that duplex is renting for $1,000, just to use a number, a round number, or even number, I should say. You can then use $750 of that rental income to go towards your income on paper to help you qualify for that property. So if you make $4,000 a month, you can say, I make $4,750 a month now, and it'll help you qualify. You'll still have to have that 14 to 15,000 down, and you'll still need to have close to 4,000 in closing costs. But $20,000 gets you in. You now own your side, you rent out the other side, and your mortgage payment of, let's say, at $400,000, we're looking at $3,200. you're going to have to cover what, 2,600 of it. Well, not, they're paying 1,000 and you have a $3,200 mortgage. They're going to pay 1,000. You have to pay $2,200, which dramatically decreases the amount that you have to have out of pocket every month.
Definitely, definitely. And if you partner with a cousin or a friend, that's cut in half, the
Correct.
2,300. So that's really, it's really good that you mentioned the group economics. And in our community, as we know, we have a very hard time sharing and working together. It's kind of like I'm doing my thing over here, he's doing his thing, she's doing her thing over there. What are some reasons? What are some things you've seen in your career as to why some people just don't want to work together or don't trust one another?
It's how we're raised. I mean, if you look at it, what are the things that happen? And I think it's what, the 50s, early 60s, as we started to integrate into communities, and we came from more owning our own properties, actually, like working on farmland or on the outskirts of the communities. We moved into cities. We started living into huge projects, majority of us. And one of the issues with living in these projects were you couldn't live in them unless you had a certain income. And generally, to meet this income, a lot of the women had to say that they were not married or they did not have a man in the household. And so the men would have to sneak around, or they just would have to leave to make sure that their family had somewhere stable to live. What that did, in my opinion, is it automatically started allowing us to think that the government was going to be of more assistance than each other. And so now that we look at things and we just assume that the government's going to take care of us in a lot of ways, we don't see the benefit or the need to work as a strong group. And when you have that, it's easy to say, instead of working through something and saying, hey, Sam, you know what, I don't agree with you on this. You know, I wish you'd clean the dishes up and make sure your side of the apartment is clean. I just say, you know what, I don't want to live with Sam. I can do this shit by myself. Excuse my language. I can do this stuff by myself. I can go somewhere else. I can get Section 8, or I can do X, Y, or Z instead of living with somebody else. When in the long run, it would be better to say, hey, Sam, you know what? We don't agree on everything. I need you to clean up behind yourself. We don't have to do this forever. We're going to live together for these 24 months. We're going to stack our bread. You're going to buy something in 2 years. I'm going to have this one. We both have something. We don't have to live with each other no more, but now we have something that we can pass on. And without that mentality, the sacrifice up front, it's always going to be a struggle. But until we can say, as a group, Black and brown people, that we can agree to not always agree on everything, but struggle through with one another, we're always going to be at the point where we say, you know what, I don't need this. And that sentence right there always ends up costing me more.
Definitely, definitely. And it's very interesting to see other communities such as Jews, you know, who do everything together and own just about everything that you could think of in every industry. I mean, I'm sure in real estate or Asians, you know, they are powerful, and you can see that they move as one no matter what, even if they don't like each other. You know, they know that coming together will help them to pursue whatever it is that they want to do.
I mean, but you have to look at it like this. I mean, it's cultural.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, me and you, as African-American men in America, I can go back 4 people and they were a slave. When you say it that way, it's not that long ago. You know, it's not, 400 years ago. 4 people ago, my family were slaves. And also, we don't have a rich history of where we came from. I can't tell you without going to doing some ancestry.com really where I come from. I'm as American as it comes, you as well. Most likely, America is really where our roots started for us, because that's the history we have. And the history we have is of us being divided and not really knowing how to do things together. When you look at Jewish culture, you know, if you're in the desert for 40 years or 400 years together, you built a relationship. You have oral history, you have written history, you have understanding of where you come from. If you look at Japan, they were so isolated at one point, everyone knew exactly where they came from because they turned their backs on the rest of the world. I mean, even if you look at cultures like the Somalis, who are a lot of them are in Minnesota now, or Minneapolis. they can tell you back 10 family members. And they can tell you where they came from, how they came about. And that history allows you to work much better together because you know what you're working towards. But when you've been dropped off somewhere and you've essentially been told after slavery to sharecrop and after sharecrop to be in segregation, your goal is survival, survival, survival. And if the only thing you're thinking about is how do I feed myself, it's very hard for you to think, how am I going to help the person next to me?
Definitely. And how do you think we can shift that mindset and start to invest in real estate together as a community or with our friends or whoever?
It starts like podcasts like this, like classes like REAP, the Real Estate Associate Program LA. It starts out with us networking. It starts with us saying, okay, this isn't going to be perfect, but I'm willing to put in $10,000. The same $10,000 I would waste over a few years on clothes and drinks and different things. I'm going to invest that into my community, into something that should have a long-term success. It's really one of those things where you have to go into the situation saying, you know what, Sam, I like what you're doing in Ohio. I'm going to invest $5,000 with you. If you can show me that you have a plan for this and that you think that you're going to, and that you're dedicated to doing it, I'm going to invest with you because that's what I should do. You know, we have no problem investing in tech companies that we don't know anything about. Look at WeWork. Everybody thought it was the biggest thing since sliced bread, the best thing out there. Nobody looked it up. It was a gentleman with a flamboyant guy with a good story, and everybody just said, here's our money. Now, in our community, we don't do that. It says Sam starting a WeWork. Mm-hmm. I don't know. He think he's better than everybody. He over here trying to do this. I don't know. He probably don't even know what he's doing. I'm not investing with him. Other communities say, well, he went to college. He works hard. He has the numbers. You know, support it and see if it does well. And the funny part is, we'll support it. We don't know anything about it, and our own people will support it, saying, I'm going to make some money off of this. But the guy you grew up with that's been working hard for 10 years, you saw him go through college, you saw him working somewhere, it's not the same support. So I guess my honest opinion is you just have to have the fortitude to say, you know what, this guy's doing it. He showed me the numbers. I'm going to go out on faith. I'm going to support my community. I'm not going to just talk about supporting it. I'm actually going to put my money where my mouth is.
Definitely. And that brings up another question. So a lot of people in our community are afraid to invest in our community and see value in investing in our communities, and we're, you know, mostly Black and brown people. However, others have seen the value in our community and have just, you know, acted in the opposite way and purchased and invested. What are your thoughts on that?
If you're raised in a community where most of your friends die early, you're not thinking about the long term. And so it's very hard for you to, what I call, seeing around the corner. You'll see a Caucasian family move into a neighborhood, looking around the corner. They're saying, I went to some city council. I saw that the train's going to be coming here. I saw that they have a plan that's going to bring some economic upswing. I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to live next to these people, and I'm going to ride it out. I'm going to get in early and make some money. Whereas our community, a lot of times when you don't see yourself with a long-term plan, it's hard for you to say, I'm going to invest here and I'm going to wait it out, because you're thinking, I want to enjoy the little bit of time I have on this planet. I'm going to go move to Beverly Hills, live my best life, and whatever happens, happens. I can't be worried about tomorrow. The problem is, for a majority of people now, we live a lot longer than we think. You think you're going to have a short life, and then you live to 80, and you don't have anything put together.
Yeah.
And that's what we're starting to see. So it's one of those things where you have to really be paying attention to what's happening out in front of you. I mean, I always use the example of going to a nice sit-down steak restaurant, steakhouse, right? You go there, or, well, I'll start from this way. You can go to the grocery store, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can get filet mignon, some asparagus, some potatoes, and a bottle of wine. and spend maybe $70 and feed 2 people and have a really good night. But you have to prepare the food, cook it, do everything, and then serve it. Or you can go to Morton's or Roof Chris or one of the more expensive steakhouse, and you can get that same meal for $400. But they prepared it for you. So now you have to pay that premium. And that's the same thing we have to start doing is you have to have the foresight to say, I'm going to go to the grocery store and put the work in to prepare this meal. Because if you're waiting for somebody else to prepare it for you so that you can invest, it's going to cost you more. Magic Johnson saw that Black people like Starbucks, that Black people like TGI Fridays, that Black people like to go to the movies. We all know we like nice things, but we don't want to invest in our own communities because in our mind, we don't, for some reason, think the guy next to us likes nice things. I mean, through the history, I mean, we take care of our cars, our shoes, our clothes. Yes, we like nice stuff. Why wouldn't we be the ones supplying it to each other?
Definitely. I agree. And then something else that came to mind. You mentioned previously buying a home and then using the equity to buy something else. Can you talk about what exactly that means and what that will look like for someone who, wants to buy a home and eventually do that down the line, or somebody who already has a home and wants to tap into some of that equity to make another investment?
Okay, so one of the things I love is everybody loves to talk about equity. Everybody's like, I got so much equity in my house. Equity is not a real thing unless you tap it. You have to be able to get to that money. So let's just say you buy a house for $150,000 in Inglewood, a condo, right? You bought it in 2012, and now it's worth $300,000. You've been paying on it for these years, so you've knocked down your mortgage to $120,000. So you have essentially $180,000 worth of equity in that property. Now, some people would say, I'm going to take out as much of this money as I can and have a good time. That's not the right way to go about it. My philosophy is, okay, if you have a condo that's worth $300,000 and you have close to $200,000 of equity, how do you deploy some of that capital? How do you get some of that money out? Okay, the first thing is you want to make sure you don't take out too much money that you can't afford to pay the mortgage anymore. You got to figure out what that number is. And the second thing is you have to figure out where you're going to place those funds, because one of the things you don't want to do is have a bunch of money in your pocket with no plan, because that's the easiest way to go broke.
Yeah.
So the first thing is you have to say, okay, I'm going to take out $80,000 because I can still afford to pay my mortgage if I take out this $80,000. I'm going to put this $80,000 into 2 to 3 things that I think are really beneficial. First thing is I'm going to buy another asset. I'm going to put down the money to buy a duplex or a triplex in Bakersfield that's going to pay for itself and also give me some return cash in hand that I can now put into paying down that property or to put to paying towards the mortgage on the condo that I refinanced. I cashed out refinance. Second thing, you take that $80,000 and you pay off your student loan debt. That allows you to now be able to work with cash on hand. You're not in debt anymore. You pay it off over a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 4%, 4.5%, much cheaper, and it's spread out for a really long time than having to carry that on your student loan debt. Now your debt to income is a lot lower, and you can qualify to buy other assets. Or the third thing is, which I see a lot of people do, is they take that money to just pay for their kids' school in the first place. They'll put their kids through college. Their kids don't come out with debt, and their kids have a step up on other people. They don't have to scramble to just get any other job because they can take their time a little bit because they're not just burdened with all this debt that most of us have now. It's like the new sharecropping is student loan debt. You're working now just to pay back debt that you accumulated. Well, most of us aren't even using the education that we went to school for. So my thing is you either take that equity out, buy another asset, pay off some debt that's you're having to pay for that is a heavier burden with a higher interest rate, or you take it to make sure that you ensure your kids start off on a stronger footing.
Definitely. Thanks for that breakdown. You also mentioned Bakersfield, California. and something you've mentioned in the past. So can you talk to us more about the market up there and what's happening up there as far as ownership? I know you have some clients who are doing some work out there.
Yep, I was just there 2 days ago, actually, looking at some properties. And one of the things I like a lot about Bakersfield, and it's not that I just chose Bakersfield, it's just what the market mix is. Right now, you have properties that aren't that expensive. You have an agricultural market, one of the biggest agricultural markets in the country. You have oil market. You have college out there. You have the military, and you have Amazon moving out there. And what that allows for is for if you become a landlord in that area, you have a workforce. You have a pretty consistent workforce. When we're looking at buying properties, we want to make sure that we're picking communities with a workforce. You know, you can go to some places like Gary, Indiana, as an example. When I was younger, I was trying to invest in Gary, Indiana. And what I learned was there was no jobs. So I could pick up a house for $10,000, but it wasn't an asset. It was a liability because there was nobody to put in the house. On paper, I could be like, oh, I own all these houses in Gary, Indiana. But really, I was just saddling myself with debt. So when you're looking at somewhere like Bakersfield, when I say it, most people will cringe and go, oh, that's not sexy. But you have to take off your owner-occupied hat and put on your investor hat when you're looking at a community and say, all right, this isn't a sexy house, but I can get it for $120,000 and I can get $800 in rent a month. On a $120,000 mortgage, I'm paying let's say I'm paying $800 and I'm renting it for $1,000. I'm making $200 for a 20% down. That's no other time in life you're going to be able to do that, essentially. You put that down payment in the bank, you're going to make, what, $7 for the year?
Yeah.
$25 for the year max? Is that 0.00000 interest rate that the bank's going to give you? You know, you have to really be thinking, like, where can I deploy my money where there's a stable workforce? One of the things I like right now in Nevada, as people are starting to be priced out of California, it's becoming a market it's a nicer market now because people are moving there to stay and to work, not just to get a vacation home. Certain parts of Atlanta where you have the entertainment industry going, those properties are keeping their value. Arizona, it's a warm place, well, a hot place, where a lot of jobs and a lot of companies are moving. Places that scare me sometimes are places more like a lot of people are moving to Texas, but what they're realizing is there's high property taxes. And that if you buy something as an investment there's so much open land in Texas, there's always something built next to you. So you buy an investment property and then somebody builds something next to you and you lose value. So you want to buy in a place where there's not as much space to keep building.
Definitely, definitely. And can you talk to us more about your company and the work that you all do?
Okay, so WLM Financial and Realty, once again, we're a real estate and mortgage company. Our motto is we help you find the home and get the loan. Our goal is to essentially talk to people, our possible clients, and educate them on what they qualify for. You know, I could probably make more money just being more of a salesman, but my goal has always been to not have other people grow up in apartments like I did and forever when they probably could have been buying a home. So what we try to do at WLM is we set up strategic plans for individuals. So if you come in, we sit down, the first thing we do is we want to do a budget for you. And that budget is not so we can put you on a budget and tell you what to do with your life, but so that we can figure out where all your money is going so you can see it. And then we say, all right, with the money that you have, these are the things that we can do. We can help you pay this, we'll give you a plan to help you pay down stuff so that you can buy an asset. We can help you refinance so that you can possibly get rid of the mortgage insurance that you had on your FHA home, save yourself some money, $300-400 a month. We can help you get your next asset. Or some people will say, I'm no longer interested in residential. I'm looking for a commercial space. I want to open a dance studio. I want to open up a gym or an office space. We'll help you put together a plan to get that building from the finance and real estate side. Or we'll also help people put together people who own a lot of property already. We'll put together a strategic plan to see if their assets are performing correctly. you know what, this property has no debt on it. It's paid off free and clear. You should probably refinance it and put a little debt on it so that you can have a write-off. Or you know what, why don't we 1031 this property and exchange it into something that's going to be more beneficial to you over the long run. So essentially at WLN, what we do is we help you come up with a strategic plan for yourself, an individual plan. We're not really big on putting people in programs. Our goal is to figure out what Sam needs, what David needs, what Kevin needs, and figure out how to put that plan together for them.
Definitely, definitely. And what inspired you to go into business for yourself and start this company? I mean, there's some great work you've been doing, and you've been doing it for quite some time now.
Not gonna lie to you, I was a company man. I was working for a Fortune 100, and I was a company man. I was moving up. I was one of the younger guys, and my goal was to be in the C-suite. And I was working out at the University of Chicago and tore my ACL playing basketball with some doctors and lawyers. And I was out on a disability, and the company rushed me to come back because we were having some issues. I came back and they were like, we just need you to be there. We don't really need you to work that hard. I came in and they worked me like a dog. And I knew at that time, I was like, I am so replaceable if I'm not healthy here. I can do this for myself. So I ended up taking my 401k and pouring it into my business, starting it up. And I'm not going to say it's been easy, but what I have now is I have the understanding that if I work 80 hours, I'm working out 80 hours for me and my family. Every dollar I earn goes to us. That allows me to bring in the employees I want. I can work in the community I want. I can say the things I want. And it's stressful, but it also allows me to be me and know that my destiny rests in my hands. A lot of people will say, oh, you're taking on a commission business. And I'll say every job's a commission business. If you have a job, you're on commission. It's just a different kind of commission.
Right. Definitely. And what inspires you to keep going every day, just in the face of different challenges that I'm sure you face as an entrepreneur?
I would say my grandmother was my biggest inspiration. Like, she moved from Arkansas with I think a 6th grade education, and she owns a house in Park Hill Heights. She had 5 kids and raised all of them, raised me and all my cousins, all 25, 30 of us.
Wow.
Selling Mary Kay and anything that she could. And what I learned from that was you can do anything in this country if you have a work ethic. What pushes me is, I have a 5-year-old son, Odest III. My goal is, my dad worked really hard, Odest Sr., to make sure that I could go to college and I could have better. My goal is to make sure that college is even a thought. It's just a regular mandatory thing for my son. And by the time, possibly, if he has Odest IV, I don't want to be lazy, but life just shouldn't be that hard because we're building legacy. So for me, it's building legacy and also giving back to my community. I think if we all focused more on where we're at, I always joke and say, if you spend more time trying to build the 3 miles around where we live, the world will be a better place.
Definitely. Definitely. And what are some of the most memorable client success stories that you can think of?
One of my favorite clients, she's listening, Jasmine, Jasmine C. She came in, she moved from Philadelphia, super hardworking. She came out here and some guy she was working for got her to invest in his business as an employee, saddled her with some debt. And when I met her at I think I met the same event I met you at. It was a home buyer seminar.
Yeah.
Her main concern was, she had okay credit and a good job, but a ton of debt. That was in March, I think, when we did the event. By September, we came up with a budget, got her to pay off the $17,000 in debt she had. We had put her on a plan. She downsized her whole life, no vacation that year. By that December, she had saved up enough for a down payment by moving into a studio apartment. And by the following year in May, we had her in a duplex next to USC with a bonus room in the back that she decided to live in, where she could become a landlord and bring in enough income to where she was only paying $200 a month for her mortgage.
Wow.
And so she inspires me. Like, she went from there. She's in San Francisco now, took a new job out there. She's renting out the 3 units in LA, and she's looking for her next her next move this year.
Wow, that's incredible. She turned everything around so quick.
I mean, she sacrificed. She gave
Yeah,
up some brunches, some trips, cut down on, living expenses. And, she jokes. She always says it wasn't fun, but, you got to work for what you want in this country.
definitely, definitely. And how is your team currently structured? How many people work with you?
So right now, it's me. I'm kind of the rainmaker. I go out, I build the relationships. I make sure that we are always focused on clients. My business partner, Tomas, he's more of the numbers guy. He's a really good dude. He makes sure that everything is tight, really tight. We have Elena in the office who is assistant and underwriter. We have Sky who allows us to do client outreach. Brandy's an agent. So, let's see, Brandy, Marquis. It's about 8 of us. We're a small boutique firm, but we get a lot done.
Definitely, definitely. And why did you decide to base your firm in Inglewood?
Born and raised in Inglewood, and I always, everybody told us why we could just open up a small office in Beverly Hills. We have that Beverly Hills address. And my thought was, at the time, I went to the Inglewood Chamber of Commerce, and I looked at it. Who was paying to be a member? And everybody in the book was Asian or white. And my thought in my head is, if this community is so bad, why are people investing in it? And I was like, I'm going to be one of the people who invest back in my community. I know the clientele, I have the relationships, and it's a computer. I don't need to have an office in Beverly Hills. I can do the work from here. The internet allows you to work from wherever. And I tell clients, if you want to work with me on certain things, you have to come here. And when people would come in, they'd see that it was a lot nicer than they thought it is.
Definitely, definitely. I know you're really involved in the community as well. What are some of the things you do in the community? Some perhaps programs or organizations you're a part of?
Well, I'm a part of the Greater Los Angeles African American Chamber. I'm a part of the Inglewood Airport Chamber of Commerce. I'm the Housing Advisory Commissioner for the City of Inglewood. And I also am very involved in the school district. I feel like education is the key to success. I'm not big on school, which people laugh at, but I'm huge on education. I mean, everything you need to know is in a book or on YouTube. You just have to spend the time to look for it. And so I'm always at the schools trying to make sure that kids understand that nobody's going to give you anything. But if you can figure out how to find information, you'll always be an asset. So I try to stay involved with those things, mostly the school, mostly housing, and then the Midnight Mission is it's dear to my heart. It's a mission in Inglewood that allows people who are homeless to move in. It helps you get a job if you have it's generally single moms with children. It'll help you get back on your feet. You don't have to pay any rent while you're there. And when you move out, after a certain amount of time, when you're moving out, all the money you pay towards rent, they allow you to take that money and put it towards moving into your own apartment. So I think it's a pretty good program.
Definitely. That's awesome. That's awesome. Do you feel that your community involvement has helped you gain information? Well, help people, of course, but also help you gain information that has helped to grow your business?
I think it has. It's taught me that one of the funnier things that you learn when you really listen to people is you'll see somebody, the shiny penny, the person that you think has the most money. They're driving a nice car, they went to a good school, they have an expensive watch on. That person will be rotten sometimes, and they don't really have any money, and they're not really going to help you build your business. And that person that you would have overlooked, that lady who, just kind of dresses homely, doesn't say much, drives an old car, she's actually that person that will do business with you, help invest, and have the relationships that you need. It's about really getting to know people. And I think one of the things growing up in a small city like Inglewood, I call it a town, you realize that you need to talk to people. And, you never know who you're talking to.
Definitely.
And so that's something I try to keep with me.
Definitely, definitely. I know you've also made some personal investments on your own. So can you walk us through what that was like and kind of what challenges you may have gone through and what happened from there?
It's good ups and downs with real estate, any kind of investment. You got to
Yeah,
realize that the returns are not guaranteed. And I think that's one of the things that you really have to beat into your head. Like, this is assumed return. It's not a guaranteed return. So my first investment ever was my first condos in Chicago. I was in school. I was living in a condo on Lakeshore Drive. And my girlfriend at the time was like, why don't you just buy something? And it had never occurred to me that I could buy anything. Excuse me. I ended up taking my money from my 401k. I was working at Walgreens at the time. I think I had like 15 grand total. And I took out $13,000, and it was the biggest check I ever saw. And I bought a condo in Hyde Park, and I bought two condos in the same building for $110,000. I moved into one and spent my time and energy fixing it up while I fixed up the one I lived in and the one that became a rental income. And from that, I was able to refinance the rental one. And I made more money just on the refinance than I had put in the first place. After that, I was kind of hooked, even though I was still working 9 to 5 or 9 to 12. I was working crazy hours, but I was like, oh, I just get mailbox money from my tenants. You have to deal with headaches and stuff on here and there, but it was like they just drop off a check every month. This is pretty good. That started me investing in Indiana, Atlanta, a few other cities, and some of it was great. Some of them were great investments. The biggest issue I ran into was 2009, like many people. On paper, I was worth a ton of money. I over-invested, over-leveraged because I didn't understand a few nuances, like don't use an American Express as your total payroll to take care of everything. When the market crashed, I gave back the keys to a few houses, not knowing that American Express pulls your credit every month, and they cut off my line of credit. And essentially, I was no longer able to float my company because I didn't build a strong infrastructure. 2011, back on my feet, started to get back into real estate again. And now I do things like buy properties in neighborhoods near USC, Bakersfield, places where I know that I have a built-in market. USC students, students who work in the military in Bakersfield. I also was blessed to make the strategic move to invest in Sirius XM radio when the market was down. I think I bought into that for like 35 cents. It was something that all my friends listened to because it was in their cars. It was also something that I saw at the time was a monopoly. This is pre-Spotify. And it was like, okay, there's really no other company doing this. And I think it trades at like $6 a share now. And so that was one of my biggest positions. Also, I invest in people who are small businesses or other investments. So we use Sam Dolcine as an example. If he's going back to Ohio to look at more properties and he can show me that the numbers are right, my goal will be to say, okay, can I cut a check for $5,000 or $10,000? And what will my return on investment be? So essentially, I'm always looking for new investments, but I spend more time vetting investments than investing in investment. It's really about the time up front to see if that investment is really going to pay off. Nothing's guaranteed, but you definitely have to do your due diligence before you write a check.
Definitely. So I know a lot of people talk about like 08, 09, kind of just a lot of the challenges. A lot of people lost homes and investments. What were some of the biggest lessons you learned from that period of time?
Leverage. What is leverage? It's how much money you put into something that you can get control of an asset. What I learned is you never want to over leverage yourself. You don't want to buy so many properties with so little down that you can't control the outcome. It's about getting good assets, not a lot of assets. That was probably my biggest lesson. They were allowing you to buy any and everything. Me and my friends were just buying land. Anywhere we can get a hold on. Oh, it's a house, buy it. It's cheap. Oh, no money down. We didn't think that, okay, if they call the notes on these properties due, how are we going to pay for this? If there's no economy here for people to work, who's going to pay for this? And so that was my biggest lesson. It's like now it's not about quantity, it's about quality. I'd rather have one 6-unit building in East LA with great tenants than 4, 5 units in the middle of the country where there's no, and outsides of Detroit where there's no people to put in those buildings. So that was my biggest thing. And also read the fine print on your credit cards and on your lines of credit or anything that you have. You need to know, if something happens, how do I get myself out of this position? And the third thing I learned is OPM, other people's money. You want to invest with banks, investors, you want to syndicate funds. You want to make sure that you're not the only one in the investment. You want to make sure that, you know, if we're a pool of people and we all put 5,000 in instead of one individual putting 100,000 in, it spreads the risk and the reward. You know, so that's something I'm big on now, is going into investments with other people, because it allows me to cut down on my risk and also allows them to have some upside on the reward.
Definitely, definitely. One of the things that you mentioned, I would love to expand some more on using other people's money. So it's kind of, I guess it's kind of a buzzword now, you know, using other people's money, raising private capital. But the challenge for most people is just, what does that look like? How could you structure that? So can you talk more about how someone could utilize investors to purchase real estate, and kind of what that would look like, how that could potentially be structured?
Okay, so other people's money is not a buzzword. It's new to us. It's what's funny. We've always been taught that, oh, you should pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You know, that's kind of the mantra that we hear. And the truth is, most people who have been successful in this country have used other people's money. They just didn't talk about it. So I would say it's called syndicating. You want to syndicate. You want to be able to say, if you can find a good investment in America, you can find somebody who will invest in it. What most people don't do is find a good investment. They have ideals. Ideals aren't that valuable. Implementing ideals is valuable. So if you can say, I found this house in Ohio, Odest, and it's $12,000. And it is a gut rehab, but I think it's in this upcoming neighborhood, and we're going to have to put $20,000 in it. So for a total of $32,000, we're going to have a really nice house in a great upcoming neighborhood. And it's going to cash flow X. X is going to be able to pay for the mortgage and pay everybody off in 36 months, and you're going to have an equity stake. People are going to invest in that. Why? You have a full plan. You're coming, you're not saying, hey, I think there's a house and some houses in Ohio and we can all make money. That's what most people are going to say. That's not an investment, and that's not something that you can get other people's money to invest in. So essentially, OPM, or other people's money, is finding a great asset or a great investment and then packaging that deal so that you can say, hey, I need you to invest in this amount of time, for this amount of return, and this is the exit strategy. And if you can do those things, most people will invest with you. Not most people. A lot of people with money who understand investments will invest with you. There's always money out there. You know, we're not on the gold standard anymore. You know, it's definitely fiat money. They're printing more of it every day. And banks need to lend it out. They borrow it at an interest rate, and they need to lend it out at a different interest rate. The same thing with investors. They get people's money from their hedge funds, from their retirement accounts, or from wherever, and they need to give those investors a return. And so they need to deploy it to somebody. Why shouldn't it be you if you have a good investment?
Definitely. And
also, one thing, you want to make sure that if you're going to get other people's money, if you're doing partnerships, everything has to be in writing. You need lawyers, you need notaries, you need people who are going to make sure that you are 100% solid in how it's structured. You don't want to just take on people's money without having a real solid game plan on how to return it. You know, that's one of the biggest no-nos for me. It's like, I never want to take on a person's money without knowing exactly what I'm going to do with it and exactly what my exit strategy is to make sure that their money is safe.
For sure. And as far as partnerships, could it be, you know, someone investing a certain amount of money into a deal, getting their money back over a period of time, and then they're out with no equity?
Partnerships, any way you draw it up.
Okay.
I mean, one of the things I learned from doing different partnerships is I want to be the managing partner in deals I put together. I used to go in with this round table method of everybody having 100% say on how everything's going to get done. Because what you end up with is too many chiefs and not enough workers. You need to have enough people who are working on stuff. You need silent partners in there. You should have one or two people who are going to be making the real moves, the real decisions. You definitely want to listen to what the other investors have to say or the other partners have to say to make sure, sometimes there's some really good nuances in there, but it slows you down so much that it's hard to be productive. So partnerships, you want to make sure generally there's a controlling partner and a person to make sure that person is overseeing. You want to make sure if you're setting up a bank account, there's at least 2 to 3 people from a partnership in there so that you can have transparency. But you also want to make sure that there's not so many rules in the partnership that it bogs you down. It doesn't allow you to invest in anything. And how you pay people out are different ways. You can pay them out through either there's a simple, you invest 10,000, you get 12,000 back in 6 months, or you invest 10,000, you get 12,000 back in 26 months, plus you have a 10% equity for life in the property. There's different ways to structure it. It really comes down to where you are and how much money you have. You may have to give away a majority of the equity to do the deal because you don't have any money to put in. You found a great property. You think it's going to be an amazing investment, but you don't have any capital. So you come to somebody who does, and you tell them what it is, and you say, hey, I'm going to want a management fee of $10,000 when we close, plus 10% equity in it, and over the long hold, and 20% stake when you sell, if you decide to sell. But you got to make sure that you're important enough in that deal to where you can stay in the deal.
For sure. For sure. And something else you mentioned was over leveraging. How does someone know if they're over leveraging?
That's experience generally. Over leveraging is if you're taking on more debt than you can handle and you don't have a plan to exit, you're over leveraged. You can take on a ton of debt. Debt's not bad. It's no plan for that debt, how to get out. That really messes people up in the long term. If you are not able to put together a plan where you can get out, so let's just say you buy a property, right? And it's $2 million and you do not have the ability to know how, if things go wrong, you can sell that asset, you now are in trouble because the market can change. And how do you get rid of that debt if things go wrong? That's when you look and you see properties on the MLS that are partially done. Oh, an investor's dream. And you look and it's like, okay, why are 2 rooms in that house fixed and the rest of the house looks gutted? That person did not know how to get out of that deal. They over leveraged. They spent probably too much money to buy the property. They spent too much money to fix those other 2 rooms up, not realizing there was 3 other rooms that needed to be done.
What would your advice be to a newer investor who wants to start using other people's money? How could they do it in a way where they're not putting themselves out there too much and it's a manageable risk? So for example, let's say someone, brand new investor, they want to raise $30,000. How could they do that in a way where, they're not caught with their pants down a year later?
Okay, first thing is friends and family. So, first thing is finding an investment. So generally, one of the guys I talked to, he says you have to look at 200 properties, fully vet 200 properties before you invest in anything. And so the first thing is finding a property that makes sense. Now, you cannot mitigate all risk. It's no such thing. But you want to make sure that you mitigate as much risk as you can. So if you say you're buying a house for $200,000, that house has an $1,800 mortgage when you buy it for $200,000, and you think that you can rent it for $3,000 a month because that's what the market shows you. That's a pretty good risk. I don't see a lot of downside to that. You tell your investors, I need $30,000 to buy this. You're going to get paid off when I get this house stabilized. I'm going to refinance it. I'm going to pay you out the money that I borrowed from you, and I'm going to give you a $5,000 balloon payment. Boom, that's a good deal. You say, I'm going to buy this house for $150,000 in Inglewood because I have a relationship with the person's family who's selling it. I need to put $100,000 into it, and then we can sell it for $500,000. That's a good deal. Once again, on the worst case scenario, you could sell that house without fixing it up for $320,000 just because that's what the market allows for here. Now, if you buy a house in Inglewood for $480,000 and you get an investor investing in you, and it's going to cost $100,000, you're at $580,000 when the average house in Inglewood is selling for $650,000. The likelihood now is you're not going to be able to pull that off. You're over leveraged. You pay too much up front. You make your money on the purchase, not on the sale. If you pay too much on the purchase, you're always going to be over leveraged.
For sure. So as far as the future for your company and for you personally, considering more investments, what does that look like?
For me personally, it is all growth. I see myself eventually turn into more of a multifamily office, which is essentially a place that we don't just do real estate and lending. We take care of a certain amount of clients. We take care of everything from them. They bring in their money in. We make sure that their assets are under control. We make sure that they know when to 1031 a property, what things need to be fixed up, what things need to be sold off. And we just handle pretty much all the life of your assets. That's my long-term goal.
For sure. And what about for yourself and potential investments in the future? What are you thinking?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What about yourself and personal real estate investments in the future? What are you thinking as far as that?
My goal is to pick up apartment buildings in Southern California. You own 20, or let's say you own 5 20-unit apartment buildings that bring in $1,000 each a month. You're doing pretty good for yourself. And then I want to leverage that to do more development. Right now, I'm looking at a few places in Lancaster and Bakersfield. My goal is to long-term be able to build stuff that I can drive my son by and say, hey, yeah, the Rileys, we did that. We helped change the skyline in this area.
Sure. How involved is your son in the day-to-day in the business? How aware is he of what's going on?
He's 5. He has his own little desk here. He's here all the time. He knows how to cold call. He knows if we walk through to be doing a showing on a house, he can tell you the master bedroom because it has a bathroom here. This is the living room. This is he can tell you pretty much about real estate. And his goal is to be in construction. On his way to school a couple of weeks ago, he said, hey, Dad, I'm going to have my construction company and you're going to have WLM and I'm going to build them and you can sell them. I was like, teardrop.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, he's gonna be great when he gets older. He's gonna have the whole playbook.
Hey, that's the goal, is to line him up to be better than I am.
Absolutely. A couple more questions. So if you had $250 million, this is a question from Jamie. If you had $250 million to invest, where would you deploy that capital? How would you prioritize it? How would you invest it?
250 million. 250 million, I would pick up land in Chicago and Bakersfield. I'd buy mostly multifamily. I'd make sure that I was putting together properties. It would be mostly apartment complexes of 14 units and up that I could put in the capital to turn them into, I could get the upward capital out of them. I would stabilize them, make sure they were cash flowing, and then I would trade off some of those properties to start moving into larger assets. I also would invest in strip malls in South LA. You know, right now you'll go to a strip mall in El Segundo and it'll have a Shake Shack, a Randy's Donuts, some expensive Mexican food, and what was it, Area 50 something fish place. And I look at it and I laugh because all those places are fast, casual, expensive dining. And all it is essentially is the same strip mall I grew up with that had the little mom and pop Mexican food, the burger place, the donut shop. And commercial real estate is really where you make money in this country. It's getting small assets and starting off, and residential is great, but you always want to own assets, hotels, strip malls, things that even if you are having hard times financially, those businesses are going to carry you. So I would start to build, I would find one specific community and I would deploy it there and kind of get a stranglehold on how the economy worked there and build out.
Definitely. Another question from Reap. What is the accomplishment that you're most proud of in your life?
My son, he's he's pretty amazing. He's 5, he's gifted. I see that he has a good heart because me and his mother make sure that he understands the way that the way you should treat people. And then for me, it was buying my first place while I was in college, just because my parents were proud of me. They were able to say, my son's in college, he owns his own home, he's never gotten in trouble, and making them proud. That's probably my biggest accomplishment.
For sure. And for our listeners, for those who don't know, I recently completed a program called the Real Estate Associates Program, and basically it helps minorities to explore different careers in commercial real estate. It's a 10-week program, 2 nights a week. We've learned about development, we learned about asset management. We had people from McDonald's real estate team can teach us, Walmart, Starbucks, and all type of great firms. I mean, it really exposed us to different careers. We gained a great network. We're starting an investment club next year. So Odest, can you share more about the program, your experience in it, how it's helped you to expand your network and grow your business, and also what's ahead for the program?
All right, so REAP LA, I did it in still predominantly 80% Caucasian male, old white men, essentially. And I was able to learn that there's more to real estate than just buying houses and being a landlord. You can build, you can be a developer, you can be an asset manager, a property manager, you can work in the trades, you can be a person who does leverage buyouts. There's just so many different ways to make money in this business, from being a person who finances the properties. And one of the things I'm looking for now as the chair of REAP LA is to make sure that this program is very strong in relationships, that we're not just putting people to a 10-week program where you come in, you get a certificate, and everybody disappears and you never see them again, but a program that you can call a person from REAP and say, hey, Sam, I'm trying to do X in Ohio. I hear you're the guy out there. I need you to give me all the details and possibly help me do a deal. Hey, Serena, I know that you are a person who's good at data analysis. I need you to help me run through these numbers. One of my dreams is for REAP to be something like a Goldman Sachs, where when you finish the program, it was so hard to get in, and the relationships are so good that when you pick up the phone and another person on the other end of that is REAP, you already know they're good. If you're referring somebody, you don't have to ask a bunch of questions about them. You say, oh, they graduated from REAP. I know they're going to be good. And so I want this 10-week program to become a program now that instead of just the 10 weeks, we're also doing quarterly events. We are doing learning. You know, everybody likes to do sipping paints. I want it to be learn and invest, where you come, you learn how to do stuff, and you invest together. We have to be the future of all the stuff everyone wants to say, oh, community, community, community. How do we do it? This is how we start. We go to classes together, we learn together, we invest together, and then we have to share that with other people that look like us, because nobody's going to do it for us. We need to make sure that companies know that diversity is not just something that fills up a quota, but you're going after these diverse individuals because they're talented and because they're going to help the bottom line, because that's why people invest with you. You can move the bottom line. Essentially, that's my goal for REAP.
For sure, for sure. I definitely second all of that. I mean, REAP was a great program. I learned so much about the possibilities in the commercial real estate field and different jobs. And we had a great class. really diverse class, different industries, and people trying to go into different things. So I'm really excited about just seeing where these relationships go and what we can accomplish together. So thank you for your leadership this past fall and reap. And I mean, it's just the beginning.
Definitely my pleasure. I'm not gonna. It was one of the better classes. I think this class is going to be something that people talk about for a long time.
For sure. That's the goal. That's the goal. And so how can people reach you if they want to, talk more about your services, if they're looking to invest in homes and just want to learn more? How can they reach you and get in contact with you?
I'm pretty easy to find. Odest Riley, ODEST RILEY. You can call me at 310-905-7420. You can look me up on my Instagram at ODEST, or you can find me on my website, Odest, ODESTRILEY.com. Anywhere. You Google me, I'll pop up my ugly mug. Ask me some questions. I'll get back to you.
For sure. And can you also talk about your book?
I wrote a book called The ABCs of Real Estate Success. My son loves ABCs. If you're around him, you'll know he is like obsessed with ABCs and numbers. And so it's more about a mindset. I could have did a book where it was just talking about the underlying numbers, everything, but anybody can get that book. My thing is it's a mindset. You have to have that right attitude. You have to have a business mantra. You have to be consistent. You have to have these certain things about you to succeed in this business, because on a day-to-day grind, it's not an easy business. That's why you hear so many people saying, oh, I tried real estate. It just didn't work for me. It's too hard. No, you went in with the wrong mindset. You went in thinking that it was going to be an easy flip and you're going to make a lot of money, when it really comes down to, once again, the ABCs: attitude, business mindset, consistency, and just moving forward and having the wherewithal to wake up every day and do it the next day and the next day and the next day. And if you can pull those things together, you can be successful, not only in real estate, but in your personal life and in anything.
For sure. And can that book be found on your website?
You can find it on my website, or you can find it on Amazon. And Odest Riley is the author. The book is called The ABCs of Real Estate Success. And it's a quick read. It has a lot of stuff where you can write notes next to the thing, and it's one of those books where you're working on your mindset for preparing yourself to go out day-to-day combat.
Sure. And we covered so many great topics in this interview, which I'm excited to share. Of everything we discussed, what is one piece of advice you would give to a newbie who wants to, potentially, invest for income or get their first primary residence with the FHA loan? What would be your advice?
My first advice is to make sure you get your first asset. Get an asset. Once you get control of your first one, the next one isn't as hard. And the second advice would be find a partner. Partners make life easier. Somebody that you trust. They may not be good at real estate. They may not, just somebody you can bounce something off of, ideals, and they're going to tell you the truth.
For sure. And are there any books or resources that you recommend people check out that have helped you?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad was one of the first books I read. It's a great book on mindset and understanding what an investment is and what isn't an investment. The Richest Man in Babylon, that's a really good book. I enjoyed that book a lot. And I also, the 48 Laws of Power, really just negotiating when you're dealing with people in real estate. You got to be ready to go to war, because it's you versus them.
For sure. Any last thoughts?
No, I would tell people, find a team, find a partner, find somebody that you can invest with. Start saving your money and get your own piece of land. And if you look at the royal family, they're not rich because they were touched by God. They're rich because they own all the land in Europe. If you really want to change the world for your family, you change it one house, one block, one plot of land at a time.
Definitely. Well, thank you, Odest. It's been a pleasure interviewing you today and diving in more. I know our listeners will find this very helpful. Sometimes real estate, it can seem intimidating when you haven't done it before, but through this interview, we have a lot of specific and concrete things to look into and to research, and of course you to reach out to and inquire about your services and such. So thank you again. And for our listeners, thank you again for listening in. You can find us on Instagram at Black Real Estate Dialogue. Look forward to hearing from you all soon.